Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. If you know, I always open my live like that because I do think it's super cool that we can live anywhere in the world these days and still tune in all at the same time. So I want to thank everyone for being here. This is the Sellovatorz Tuesdays, 9 a.m. every morning, and we have an amazing guest this morning. We're going to let her do her own introduction, but before we do that, I want to make sure everyone lets us know where they're located by letting us know in the comments below. I'm here in Houston, Texas. I am Denise Martha Bachman. We have Heidi Solomon-Orlick here. Heidi, can you tell us where you're located as well?
Yeah. Hi, Denise. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I'm actually hailing in from New Hampshire today.
Nice. I have only been to New Hampshire once as a drive-through.
Oh, it is beautiful. I'll tell you, if you had told this California girl that she was going to end up in a farmhouse in New Hampshire, I probably would have told you that you had lost your mind. But when our kids moved out, we downsized. We had always wanted to buy an old farmhouse. And so here we are. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful state.
So you just after your kids grew up, you just moved from California out to the New Hampshire area?
Yeah, it's going on 6 years, but this was, my youngest son was looking at colleges in the New England area, and so we were bringing him and here and just fell in love with it. So yeah,
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. I know.
That's really, really awesome. Because I'm old, I am turning 52 and I still have a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old. So by the time my kids are off my payroll, and oh, by the way, they probably won't be off my payroll, but I'll be 60. I mean, at the minimum, right? So
well, I'm old. You're not old. You're a baby. I'm 65, turning 65 this year. So I know.
I would have never, no, I say that because I would have never guessed. You look amazing. So 60 is the new 40, maybe?
I guess so, but it's 65 and here I am leaning into full-time entrepreneurship for the first time in my life after, 4 decades in corporate. So it's never too late, I guess, to follow your dreams.
I love that. Yeah, I didn't start following my dreams until I was 50. So, life is what we make it, right? And I've already put it out in the universe. I've told everyone I'm going to live till I'm, a healthy 100+ year old so that I can be around for my kids and their grandchildren. So I got a lot of work ahead of me.
You do. You have a lot of life ahead of you. There's a great book called The 100-Year Life. I don't know if you've read it, but it's really, really good. So you should check that out since you're going to be around that long.
For a long, long time. But enough about this. We are here really to talk about all things related to sales. And, I'm super excited that you're here with us, Heidi. And I would not do her justice by introducing her myself. So I'll let her do her own introduction. But before we do that, I always like to share how we met. And it comes back to always the same reason, because we're here on LinkedIn. And, Heidi was one of those women who, when you looked up sales and who to follow, she was always and still is always one of those people that I immediately gravitated to. In fact, I was super excited. I think it was probably 2 years ago when you launched your book, right? And
yeah, Heels to Deals. Yeah.
So again, she can do her own introduction, but I can remember she was coming doing her tour, and you were coming down to the Dallas area, and I so wanted to be there, but things just happened, and a whole nother story, but I didn't get to. But she's one of those people that I've followed since I have been here on LinkedIn. So I'm super excited that Heidi is with us today. We are going to talk a lot of things as it relates to sales. So I can't wait for us to dive in. But Heidi, why don't you do an introduction for all of those who are out there watching?
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm humbled by that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I never do a great job at this, but I'll just maybe sum it up by saying that, I spent 44 decades, as I mentioned, I started my career in advertising and marketing and direct marketing in California. like so many other women, I fell into professional sales. So it wasn't necessarily an intentional career choice. I focused for the last 35 years on business to business, business process outsourcing sales. So complex, long sales cycles, a lot of, all about customer experience, and really has evolved into a global industry over the years. I remember when I started, and we were doing business in the US with the first company I worked for, and going global meant that organizations were going to outsource their business to Canada. And of course, today companies do business all over the world. So I've been very blessed to have a incredibly successful career and done business all over the world. Probably sold about well over $1 billion in revenue during my time in corporate, and created thousands of jobs for individuals around the world. So that has been very fulfilling. But today, and I mentioned it earlier, I'm leaning into full-time entrepreneurship. I transitioned out of corporate, not by choice. Unfortunately, my position was eliminated the middle of last year. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Did I want to go back into corporate? And Girls Who Sell was really starting to gain some traction. I had been doing it as a part-time side hustle for, 3 years, and just decided that it was my life's mission and my passion. So here I am. You mentioned Heels to Deals. We launched Heels to Deals, how women are dominating in business to business sales just about 2 years ago now. And I'm really proud to say that it won a bronze silver Stevie Award last year for Book of the Year. So that was really cool. And we'll probably talk a little bit about Girls Who Sell. You probably have some questions about that and our origin story and mission, but that's a little bit about me. I think we lost your.
Oops, sorry. So, everyone, I used to when I first started. So last year I did lives more often, and I just brought them back this year. And at the beginning, I would always say, I really suck at technology. I actually have gotten pretty good at it. But this morning I did a huge blooper. I usually try to bring up the live streams just so I can keep eye on that. And so in order to do that, the volume automatically goes on. And so I have to put my mic on mute. And I'm usually a bit better now at the technology, but this morning I wasn't. I was so entrenched and engrossed with all that you had to share. And I was saying there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, you went from having been in the corporate world for a really long time, having sold a lot of business in sales, then going to having had a layoff. Before that layoff, though, or a job elimination, whatever, role elimination, whatever we want to call that. But before that, you had already launched a side hustle. You had authored a book that then, of course, your role gets eliminated, and now you're in the entrepreneur world. I mean, that's a lot to go down. So maybe share with us. I think the most interesting for me is this.
Oh, and by the way, I raised 3 kids
along the way, which we. But
had a reverse household. So my husband was a stay-at-home dad for 15 years, and I was kind of the breadwinner. So yeah, kind of an interesting background.
Wow. So that's even more
interesting. Particularly being, a woman in sales, which is an incredibly male-dominated profession, as we all know.
Yes, it is. That was something, when we first talked about coming on together, that we were having a conversation in the comments about, happy employees make for, more revenue, right? And so we were going down this path. But then this morning, one of the things that we talked about, I think in the comments, or maybe you had posted it, was that, there's an opportunity here for us to talk all about women in sales. I mean, there are so many different directions we could actually go with this conversation, because I think they're all important and relevant. But you said something that I don't know that everyone fully understands, which is that we are still, as women, a minority in, especially in software sales, right? I think in sales overall, but in software sales, we are still a minority. I can remember when I started in software, I don't know, over 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 years ago, when I started in sales, I would suspect I was maybe one woman to every 40 men, maybe.
Right.
And when I left corporate world, which was 2 years ago, it was still 1 to maybe 20. I mean, it's still a very few women who when you consider the amount of men that are out there doing what we do, there are very few women doing that. And the reality is that those women who are doing it are super successful, because as women, we have these innate characteristics that enable and foster our ability to truly be successful in sales, yet we don't know how to, as a sales profession, know how to capitalize on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the data shows that in women in tech sales is about 12%. There's some different statistics, depending on where you look, but it's still pretty low. Still pretty low. Women only represent about 36% of the total business to business professionals. So despite the fact you mentioned innate skill sets, women definitely have the innate skill set to be successful in sales, and that's not just a personal opinion. The data proves it out that women definitely outperform men. And all due respect to the men that may be listening today, we love you. We love your allyship, but and can't succeed without you. But women overall do outperform men in several measurable areas in terms of revenue, more profitable revenue, pipeline progression, closed deal rates, etc. So I mean, and diverse teams clearly perform better than non-diverse teams. I think we don't have to debate that anymore. I think that's a proven fact as well. So, hiring more women into sales is not only the right thing to do, but it's good for business.
Which then maybe share with us why you started Girls Who Sell, and what really the mission and your goal is with that organization.
Yeah. So, when I started, there weren't a lot of women in sales. I was frequently the only woman in the room. And even fast forward 35 years later, still am often the only woman in the room. And I didn't have a lot of female mentors. I did have some that were incredible and had a significant impact on my career. And I wanted to be that person. I wanted to help other women. I wanted to mentor them and sponsor them and support them in any way possible. And that was before DE&I and everything was all the rage. And I was president for a couple of different ERGs in the corporations. That wasn't sales specific, but it was just really empowering women overall. Fast forward, but I never did it in a formal way. And entrepreneurship was not ever a thing that I had ever really considered. I mean, I enjoyed being in corporate. I liked the structure. I was really successful. I made a lot of money, and I was challenged. And so moving, out of corporate into entrepreneurship was not something that I had necessarily considered. But many years later, I was 2019, and both my parents had passed away. I had quit my job as CEO of an organization to go back and be an individual contributor for another BPO company so that I could care for my parents. I was going back and forth between New Hampshire and California, and they both passed away about 6 months later, within 10 days of each other. And I had turned 60 that same year. And I have to tell you, it was a really, really tough time in my life, as you can imagine. And everything that I knew, everything that was comfortable to me shattered, right? And I had, I was thinking a lot about legacy. I was thinking a lot about impact and what I can do as a woman in sales, in professional sales, to make the world, leave the world a little bit better place than how I found it. And I came across a Harvard Business Review article this was now late 2020, because I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I wanted to do something to support women in sales and combine that with my passion of working with young women, because I always believe that the youth are our future. And I believe that to really solve for the pipeline issue and pipeline challenges, and to get more women in sales, we needed to have the conversation earlier. We needed to position sales as a viable career alternative to women to achieve economic and financial independence. And I was particularly focused on women from underserved and underrepresented communities, because not only do we need more women, but we need more diverse women in sales as well. And so, I started to do some research after I came across that Harvard Business Review article, and just realized the amount of inequity that there was in professional sales. And that was kind of my aha moment to say, you know what, that's something that I can affect change in that area. And so Girls Who Sell was born with the mission of not only democratizing professional sales, but to build the largest pipeline of diverse early stage female sales talent. And I say early stage intentionally, because there are a lot of organizations, fabulous organizations. If you look at Women Sales Pros with Lori Richardson, or if you look at Women in Sales and with Alexine and Sisters in Sales. And there's a lot of Women in Revenue. I mean, I could go on and on that are working with women who are already in sales. Girls Club, right, with Lori. Those organizations are amazing, and they're doing an incredible job and having huge impact. But I really wanted to get younger. So we work with today primarily college and early college graduates. And we work with high school students. We just graduated our first high school cohort with an alternative high school in Portland, Oregon. It was actually College Hill, but in Oregon. And my inclination is actually to get younger, Denise. So we're in the process right now of rolling out an after school sales club for middle school girls, and which I'm hoping will evolve into a summer camp program. And we're getting even younger. So we're in the process of developing a program for girls 5 to 9, 5 to 10, our Girls Who Sell Kids Club. So we're going to be talking with girls as early as 5 years old, and then we're launching a program called Get Hired. So we'll start at 5 and go all the way to post college. So it's kind of cool. It's exciting.
I love that, because I have a 14-year-old right now, a 14-year-old girl who is a freshman in high school. And I mean, I don't care what anyone says, whether you are in a sales profession or not, we sell every single day. And those of us who do it really well tend to be, unfortunately, more successful in all that we do, because you have to sell your thoughts, your ideas. You have to sell yourself. You have to sell what your accomplishments were. There are so many aspects of selling that we take on every single day, that if we were better equipped to do a better job at it, we could be so much more successful. So for those that actually know how to do it well, they most certainly see success sooner rather than later. And if we could teach all of those young children how to be better at sales, whether they go into it as a profession or not, it will serve them well, and they will see that success that we have worked so hard to achieve in our latter years. They will get to see that much sooner because they'll have the confidence. I mean, sales builds confidence. There's so many aspects of sales that are so vital and key to our character and what we do and how we perform every day, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. We reinforce that in all of our conversations. We particularly with our mentorship program, so we pair our students up with professional mentors. They're the heart of the program. I mean, we have a really good online curriculum. Our Explore Sales program is great, but that is spot on. I mean, we talk about how sales is a life skill, and how it's something that, regardless of whether you end up in a professional sales role, you will use those skills throughout your life. And I came across some data that was talking about young girls, right? Like, and how, early on, up until about 8 years old, girls have the same level of confidence as boys. But unfortunately, and I should have maybe pulled it. I can send it to you, but confidence of girls then goes on to the decline, whereas confidence for boys begins to increase. It may be because they start getting into sports. I don't know. There's all kinds of social, reasons why that happens. And, you have a 14-year-old daughter, you can see that that's a really challenging time in a person's life, right? How any of us got through middle school is beyond me. But it's, there's so much going on in our lives at that time. So if we can get earlier, and this is kind of my point, is that if we can get earlier and start, one, demystifying and debunking some of the myths of what sales is and what sales isn't, earlier on, start building those sales and entrepreneurship skills, starting as early as 5 years old. I'm hoping that then we can impact the confidence decline as girls get younger and progress, from elementary school to middle school to high school. So, I mean, that's, certainly my intent and vision for the programs that we're developing. And, there's been so much focus on STEM and STEAM, which is fabulous, right? Like, that's a great career, but not every person is necessarily cut out for that. So I'm hoping that Girls Who Sell can be for the sales world, that, a Girls Who Code, some of these other organizations that are really focused on building STEM and STEAM skills are for that profession. I mean, have you ever met a girl that, when asked what they want to do when they grow up, say, "Oh, I want to be in B2B sales"?
No. Now, I will tell you, I intentionally chose sales only because I started out as a music major. I was, I think, probably 6 credits away from finalizing that degree. So I have a minor in music. And then I switched over to, because I realized, at least in Alabama, that as a choir teacher, one of the very first things that they took away was music when they were cutting budgets, right? And I didn't want to teach mainstream, school, high school. I wanted to particularly just stay in the music space. That being said, I then switched my major to fashion merchandising, graduated with a fashion merchandising degree, minor in marketing, minor in music. And my very first job out of college was working for Bath and Body Works in a management role where I had a salary, and it was really cool, except that I realized after my first Christmas there, I did not want to do that. So I intentionally went into sales, and I sought a sales role out as soon as I graduated, only because I knew my father had been in sales and I knew you could make a lot of money and I was good at it. Right. And as corny as this sounds, I would always, when anyone asked why I wanted to be in sales, yes, money was always a motivator, but that wasn't my number one motivator. My number one motivator was that was my way of being able to make a difference, to help someone, right? I don't care how, whether it was solving a IT problem or whether it was, it didn't matter. It was just that I was able to help solve a problem and in turn, maybe make my champion, my buyer, a hero, right? And for me, that was important because I was able to give something. I was able to help people and still make money doing that. But most people don't intentionally choose sales. However, or didn't, at least then. Now I think we see more and more people choosing it. And when you look at the stats, those who start out in sales, 90% fail in their first year. That is a stat that I can't even remember where that came from. So if someone needs to know, I can figure that out and share that in the comments below. But 90%. And if we can find a way to equip them so we have fewer people failing in their first year, we do wonders for sales as a profession, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a staggering statistic. And I think it's great that you intentionally chose sales. My father was an entrepreneur and was in sales, and he discouraged me because sales was not for women. He was kind of old fashioned that way. And of course, that only fueled the fire because I was like, well, then
I'll prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong.
But that's just me. It's probably what makes me good at what I do, and probably my nemesis. But that's a conversation for a whole other
day.
A whole another day. But yeah, I mean, I think that what you're hitting on a very important point, and that's in our Explore Sales class program. That's exactly what we talk about is, we shift the mindset and the thinking about what sales is and what sales isn't. And, really focus on positioning sales as serving others. So it's really about serving. It's about problem solving. It's about building relationships. It's and the light bulb it's really interesting to see sort of the light bulb go off with these young women where they're like, oh, really? Like that's what sales actually is. I can do that, right? I can do that. And then of course it leads into the conversation of, ooh, but can I be good in sales? I don't know if I have the personality for it. And so we focus a lot on confidence and saying, listen, we created personality archetypes that say, there's a lot of different personality types that can be very successful in sales. In fact, if you don't just have to be an extrovert, right? Like I know some of the best salespeople I know are painfully shy and are introverts, or they're super analytic, or there's a lot of or they're very artsy, right? Like, or they may be extroverts. But to me, I think let's really unpack what your strengths are, what your innate personality traits are, and then how do we empower that and build on that foundation because that's your superpower, right? So I think that's really, really important. So Yeah, I think we just have to shift the perception of sales. Going back to year one, I mean, listen, we can have organizations, a lot of organizations helping build pipeline and getting more women, especially into early stage careers. But at the end of the day, if companies are not committed to um, building culture and uh, fundamentally, creating an environment where women can thrive and succeed, then we're going to continue to just to fill empty buckets. And I don't even think it's just a female thing. I think your stat really applies to, both men and women, early stage, first year jobs. And that's just a shame. I mean, companies are losing millions and millions of dollars because it takes so much money to recruit a candidate. And if you're replacing them every 6 months or every 12 months or every 18 months, that's a problem, right? Like that's a problem. So I think companies need to listen up and have a better understanding of, especially this new young generation that's coming up, what resonates with them, what's important, and create cultures that are going to enable them to be successful, provide them with the appropriate training, provide them with the appropriate career pathing and opportunities so that they can continue to thrive and excel.
And I think spend more time coaching your team
Yes.
members rather than micromanaging them or leaving them to fend for themselves, or enabling them and then walking away thinking they have everything, right? There are so many things that I feel that leaders do incorrectly. And I hate to point a finger at them and say that they suck, because that's not the reality. The reality is we don't know what we don't know. But if we could, as maybe we have to start at the top, maybe it's, more of us banding together here on, coming together as coaches and trainers and consultants and, creating this revolution, for a lack of better way to describe it, where we're shedding light on how to effectively equip your sales teams to be far more successful. And the only way to do that is if we as leaders take a coaching mentality to work with each of our reps. And by the way, we have to meet them where they are. So we have to work with them each individually so that we can understand where their strengths, where their weaknesses are, what do they need in order to be successful, what traits do they have that make them amazing, and what traits can we from that pull out and leverage to help them be successful. Those are all things that I feel like sometimes leadership gets so frustrated with, because they don't want to take the time to actually make the effort to figure all those things out and to work with each rep individually. But if we do that, they end up spending less money rehiring and re-onboarding and letting go and severance and rehiring and letting go and rehiring and letting go, right? That entire process costs so much money. And if we just took a few more minutes out of our day, every day, with each individual rep, we could set them up for success as well as our own selves and the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I agree 1,000% with that. And, it's like you hire, an individual and you give them 2 hours of training and you say, okay, these are your goals and you got to make 100 calls a day and you got to do this and XYZ. And it doesn't work. I think the coaching part of it is incredibly important. And I agree, it's got to start at the top, at the leadership level, to make the commitment, the financial commitment, the budget. I mean, you're turning people over. If you invested some dollars into coaching and mentoring and training and supporting, and it would cost you a lot less money than replacing people every year or every 6 months. So yeah, I mean, culture is the number one. This is actually, I think, how this conversation started. Is culture is the number one reason why employees are, particularly early stage first year employees, are exiting the workforce or moving from the workforce. And I think that the second, by the way, is bad leadership, bad management.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So you take those two, you combine those two, and it's really a challenge, particularly as you look at the amount of layoffs that are happening in the tech sector today. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of people, men and women, have been laid off. Starting Q4 was when it really started, although 2023 was pretty bad overall.
Really bad,
but
yeah.
Then the beginning of 2024, it looked like in March that it was going to start stabilizing and normalizing. But then so many companies at the end of March and the last couple of months have announced layoffs of thousands of jobs, and the tech sales industry has been significantly impacted. So if you look at that, what's also a phenomenon that's happening is, you have these early stage, these early college graduate, maybe that are going through sales programs or decide that they want to be in sales. But now there's such a huge percentage of underemployment because people have been laid off. So they're taking lower level positions because they need an income, right? They need to support themselves, their families, whatever. And so that's a really interesting, challenging dynamic right now. But it doesn't lessen even though you have more experienced people that are starting to take some of these entry level and mid-level management positions, it doesn't lessen the need for individuals to invest in training and mentoring and coaching and building a positive culture for people to thrive.
Well, and this is when we talked about in the comments, what prompted this engagement here and us coming together on this show was, happy employees equate to happy revenue or higher revenues, right? I mean, when you have happy employees that are thriving and succeeding and flourishing and growing, they're going to emulate that. I mean, it's going to exude from their bodies. Their energy is going to show, and people buy from people that they know, like, trust, with credibility. But in order to get in the door, you're going to have to actually like them, and you like someone who is full of energy more so. And they're usually full of energy because you're enabling them, you're helping them grow. So that enables them to truly have conversation that starts to build the credibility that buyers have to have today. So when you do that, when you take on that mentality of always, investing in your team, you find happier employees that are knowledgeable and credible, and they then in turn do a better job at selling to those buyers, and you then increase your revenues exponentially when you do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with our listener, Rachel said. It's the experience that matters. Absolutely, Rachel. I think it all starts with experience. And listen, I've spent 35 years in the BPO industry. All I've talked about for that year is customer experience, right? That you're creating the customer experience. Where I remember the early days when we would have agents on the phone, and customers would be calling in, and we would have them put smiley faces on their computers or on their desktops or whatever, because if you had a smiley face in front of you, you would talk with a smile, right? You would be energetic, and that was 1,000 years ago, but same concept applies. And I think that while of course customer experience is super critical in terms of acquiring new customers, generating revenue, and retaining customers, right? Absolutely fundamental. to be able to do that. I think where companies are falling down is, and maybe this is starting to change. I do see a shift, but is focusing on employee experience. And I think that there just needs to be more emphasis on that. Because I'll tell you, I mean, there needs to be more emphasis across the board, not just in sales, but at the end of the day, sales is a really hard job, right? So it is, you have to be in a really good mental state. You've got to be able to handle rejection. You've got to be confident. You've got it can be somewhat of a grind, particularly if you're in, an SDR or BDM. I admire the people that do that and do that well so much, right? Because it is an incredibly hard job. Incredibly hard job. So we have to, as leaders, need to create cultures to be able to address mental health, right? We need to be able to address and create environments that are going to create positivity within our corporate environment to help people get over that. And then if you have a good employee experience and your employees are happy, particularly your sales executives, but I think across the board, then that will translate over the phone. It'll translate into the presentations that they're giving to prospective buyers or existing customers that they're trying to grow business with. And it, in turn, not only will you generate more revenue, but the revenue that you do generate is going to be more profitable. So I just think that's the prescription to success. So instead of companies spending money on filling empty buckets, I think let's reinvest that money back into culture and into creating, in addressing some of the challenges, particularly around burnout and mental health. And I think it's going to pay off because you're going to retain your employees and you're going to sell more business.
Well, and sales
seems so logical to me.
I know it does. For us who live it every day, it does seem so logical. And why the heck can't everyone else get on board with us?
I don't know. I mean, I know I see companies committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. I see companies out there talking about this stuff, but I haven't seen the needles shift that much. So I don't know that there's any single silver bullet, but I'll tell you, what was a really astonishing stat that I saw lately. So not only what you said in terms of early stage, year one employees, but exiting. But when you get to that mid-level management, what's happening is for every woman who's getting promoted into a director level or above, but primarily director level position, 2 women are exiting the workforce. Not great for gender equity, right? And closing that gap. So I believe where there's got to be a lot more focus in that early stage, mid-level management, where we're seeing that what is it called, the broken rung, right? That broken rung. I think that companies need to focus there for sure.
There's so much. I mean, we could go on for hours, I think. And there are so many different directions we could go with this. I mean, sales is the lifeblood of every organization, right?
Right.
mindset. Sales is 90% mind space, right? And that applies to just anything we do. That's not even just sales specific, but we know that salespeople define, sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. Salespeople define their own success by the revenue that they bring in, right? By the quota that they attain. And so when we have challenges like this and we're not hitting quotas, it's super difficult. And then just the fact that we have fewer women, and now we have this many women exiting for everyone that gets promoted. We have more of those exiting. I mean, there's so much here we could talk about. But I think if we could maybe summarize, the conversation, and I'm trying to kind of sum this up. I feel like you and I started a long time ago in sales. We've made some headway for sure. We have seen more women entering in. You're doing amazing things with Girls Who Sell and helping the younger generation to start to accept and understand the value of selling, not even just as a profession, but just as an innate characteristic that they should have in order to carry themselves through their entire lifetime. We're seeing the development of more women, but as much as we're seeing the development of more women, we're seeing the sales as a profession, in my opinion, being devalued, because we have leadership who, as much conceptually they think that they are making an impact, we're still not doing enough at the leadership level to empower our employees so that we can turn them into happy ones, therefore increasing our revenues and profit margins. And I think there's so much we could still be doing in this day and age to set all of our employees, but specifically sales teams, in a position where they can help everyone be more successful. So if you had any parting words, Heidi, that you could leave someone today with kind of the summary of what we talked about, what would that be?
Yeah, if as a leader in a company, I think you really, it's incumbent upon you. It's your responsibility as a leader to put a finger on the pulse of what's happening within your organizations and the individual departments, particularly the sales department, which is, what I'm focused on. But that's not, there's issues all throughout corporate America and in different positions. But, survey your employees, find out what's important to them, create a environment that is focused on empowerment, and put in place the things that are going to help build a positive and sustainable culture that is going to help you retain your best, not only retain your best people, but also attract the best people into your company. And I think the companies that do that are the ones that are gonna win at the end of the day.
I agree. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better than you, except that I hope that when everyone has finished watching this session, whether you're on Team Live or Team Replay, that we talk about so much the things that we should be doing, this conceptual, practices that we should be actively taking on, but it's about putting all of those into practice. It's about taking action. Action speaks louder than words. So my hope is that those of us who are watching take at least just one aspect of this conversation and find ways to implement that, to take action on that within your organization. It is true that one person alone cannot necessarily make change, but one person can start to affect change by bringing all those other people collectively together, and together we can all affect change. It just takes someone who is willing to get their hands dirty and their feet wet and to actually affect change one person at a time. So I'm hoping that people start to take action. If you don't know how, you can reach out to Heidi. She has an amazing program, Girls Who Sell. If you don't know that, go check it out. Heidi, how can everyone find you? By the way, I did put on the bottom, you'll see the ticker running. That is her handle for LinkedIn. But how else can everyone find you, Heidi?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn is definitely the best place, very accessible, so you can reach out and connect with me. And I guess there's a couple of different ways. One is if you know of a high school or college age women who may be interested in going through the program, that would be awesome. Let me know, because we have rolling cohorts that we're working on, and so that would be great. We're looking at generating, or raising funding right now so we can expand the program. So if our mission resonated with you and you may be interested in learning more, please reach out. I would welcome a conversation. And then if you're a, professor or, at a university and think you may want to consider, implementing our Girls Who Sell Academy at your school, whether it's high school or college, or if you have a middle school that may be interested in doing a sales club program, reach out and we'll make it happen. We'll figure out how to make it happen.
Awesome. I actually would love to have a conversation with you, Heidi, about all this, because, I love my daughter and she loves me, but she does so much better when someone else teaches her probably the same skills that I attempt to teach her, right?
Of course. That's the dynamic mother-daughter dynamic. So
Yes.
I mentor a lot of, I just spoke at a middle school here I had the, distinct privilege and honor of speaking at a middle school here in New Hampshire. And I loved it. I was terrified walking into a room of 7th and 8th grade girls. It was like, give me a CEO, let me sell to a CEO any day. But it was so inspiring to speak with these children. So I'm happy to open that up as an opportunity. I speak at a lot of women's ERGs as well. And so just reach out to me. The sky's the limit. I just want to get the word out and try to have as much impact as possible.
Well, I'm honored that you joined us today. I'm so excited that we had so many here that could partake in the conversation. If you are watching on Team Replay, just put the hashtag there. We want to make sure we come back and welcome you to the conversation. I want to thank everyone who has been here today. Everyone knows human AI sales. So I talk about all things sales, AI, and human related. This is my sales arm. Tomorrow we'll have our Caff-AI Chats where we talk about AI. And then Fridays, I do my humanity arm of this, which is the Coffee with Denise. So I welcome everyone to the next, I don't know why I'm struggling here, to the next episode of this next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. But I want to thank everyone for having been here today. Super honored, Heidi, that you joined us. I am so excited that we had an opportunity to talk about some key takeaways here so make sure you rewatch, and you can watch the very end to get the summary should you have forgotten. But I want to thank everyone again for being here. I wish everyone a wonderful rest of your day. Heidi, thank you for having been here. Stay on for just a minute and I'll end this stream. Anything else you want to say before I cut it?
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yay. Now I got to just get my mouse going. One day I'm going to have someone do all of this for me.